My parents secretly arranged my marriage and lied to both me and my wife. What I discovered changed everything. Reddit story. My name is Arjun. I am 24 years old. I live in Pune, India. This is something I never thought I would share publicly. But I don't know who else to talk to anymore. Everything started as a normal arranged marriage setup. At least that is what I thought. My family told me they found a perfect match for me. Her name was Riya. She was 23. She was educated, calm, and from a good family. We talked for 2 months before marriage. She was polite, sometimes quiet, but I thought she was just shy. My parents were very happy. They said she was perfect for our family. I believed them. We got married in a traditional Hindu wedding. Big ceremony, lots of guests. Everyone said we looked perfect together. But something felt strange from day one. Riya was not comfortable with me. Not in a normal shy way. It felt deeper than that. She avoided eye contact. She barely spoke at night. And she always looked nervous when my parents were around. I thought maybe she just needed time. But then something happened in the second week. I found a locked drawer in her suitcase. I did not open it immediately. I respected her privacy. But one night, I heard her crying quietly in the bathroom. That is when I made a mistake. I opened the drawer. Inside, I found old medical papers. And something that completely changed everything I believed about her. The documents said she had been under psychiatric treatment for years. But that was not the shocking part. The shocking part was a handwritten note from my own father. It said, "Do not tell Arjun until after marriage. He will adjust. This is best for the family." My hands started shaking. I did not understand what I was reading. I waited outside the bathroom door until she came out. When I asked her about the papers, she broke down completely. She told me something I was not prepared for. She said, "They told me you already knew." My heart stopped. She continued, "Your family said you agreed to marry me knowing everything." I could not breathe properly. I told her that was not true. I had no idea about any of this. She looked more confused than I was. Then she said something that still haunts me. Then they lied to both of us. That night, I could not sleep. I went to my father's room early morning. I showed him the papers. At first, he stayed silent. Then he said something I will never forget. He said, "You don't understand. This was the only way you would agree to marry her." I asked him what that meant. He refused to explain. He just said, "She comes from a complicated background. But she is a good girl. You will be fine." That answer was not enough for me. I left the house that morning. I went to a nearby cafe and posted on Reddit. I wrote everything I just told you. I asked one simple question. Am I being manipulated by my family or am I overthinking this? I did not expect many replies. But within a few hours, the post exploded. People started commenting things I was not ready to read. Some said this looked like manipulation. Some said I should be careful. Some said there might be something deeper going on legally or medically. But one comment stood out. It said, if both sides were told different stories, someone is controlling the narrative. Dig deeper before confronting anyone again. That comment scared me more than anything else. Because I realized something. If Riya was also lied to, then neither of us actually knew the truth about our marriage. And someone in my family was controlling everything from the start. That evening, I went back home. And what I found there made things even worse. Riya was gone, but her suitcase was still there. And on top of it was a folded paper. A note, written in my father's handwriting again. It said, "She is safe. Do not search for her. You will understand later." I barely remember how long I stood there staring at the note. "She is safe. Do not search for her. You will understand later." Those words kept repeating in my head. I looked around our room again. Riya's clothes were still inside the wardrobe. Her phone charger was plugged into the wall. Even her favorite book was still on the bedside table. Nothing looked like someone who planned to leave. I rushed downstairs. My mother was sitting in the living room pretending to watch television. My father was reading the newspaper like nothing had happened. I threw the note onto the table. "Where is Riya?" My mother immediately looked nervous. But my father calmly folded his newspaper. "She needed some time." "Time for what?" I shouted. "Where did she go?" He stood up and looked directly at me. "Arjun, stop creating drama. She is safe." I asked him again. He refused to answer. For the first time in my life, I saw anger inside myself that I could not control. I yelled at him. I asked him why he had lied before the marriage. Why he wrote that note. Why he thought he had the right to interfere in our lives. Instead of answering, he said something strange. "You are too emotional right now. One day you will thank me." Thank him. My wife had disappeared and he expected gratitude. I grabbed my car keys and left the house. I called Riya. Her phone was switched off. I called her younger brother. He sounded surprised. "What do you mean she disappeared?" I froze. "You don't know." "No. My parents think she is with you." Suddenly my heartbeat became faster. If her family did not know where she was, then who took her? I immediately drove to her parents' house. When I arrived, everyone looked worried. Her mother was crying. Her father looked exhausted, and her younger brother kept calling her number again and again. I showed them the note. The moment her father saw my father's handwriting, his face changed. He sat down slowly. I asked him if he knew something. At first he refused, but after a few minutes, he finally spoke. Arjun, your father made us a promise. What promise? He said Riya would be accepted and loved. He said you knew everything. I told him that I had known nothing. The old man covered his face with his hands. I knew this would happen, he whispered. Then he revealed something shocking. Years ago, Riya had suffered severe depression after losing her fiancé in a road accident. The man she loved had died only 3 months before their wedding. The tragedy destroyed her emotionally. She spent years recovering. She attended therapy. She took medication for some time. But according to her doctors, she had recovered and was living a normal life. Her father handed me several recent medical reports. Everything showed she was healthy. The papers I had found in the drawer were very old. Suddenly I realized something. My father had used her past to manipulate both families. But why? What possible reason could he have? I returned home late that night. My father was waiting for me. He looked irritated. Why did you go to their house? I could not believe what I was hearing. I asked him directly. Why did you lie? He remained silent. I asked again. Still nothing. Then my grandmother, who rarely spoke during family matters, entered the room. She looked angry, very angry, and she pointed her finger at my father. Enough. Tell him the truth. Everyone became quiet. My father looked uncomfortable, but my grandmother continued. You think secrets protect families? They destroy them. I looked at her. Daddy, what truth? She took a deep breath. Then she said words that completely shattered my world. Arjun, your marriage with Riya was decided 20 years ago. I thought I had heard her wrong. What? She repeated it. Before either of you became adults. I stared at my father. He finally lowered his head. Apparently, 20 years earlier, my grandfather and Riya's grandfather had been business partners. During difficult financial times, Riya's family had helped ours survive bankruptcy. As a joke between friends, they promised that one day their grandchildren would marry. Everyone forgot about it, except my father. After my grandfather died, my father became obsessed with fulfilling that promise. He considered it a matter of family honor. He spent years searching for Riya after her family moved away, and when he finally found them again, he convinced both sides to agree. But he feared that I would refuse if I learned about her past trauma. So he hid everything. I couldn't believe this. My entire marriage had happened because of a promise made before I was even born. I looked at my father. Did you ever think about what I wanted? He said nothing. Did you think about what Riya wanted? Still nothing. My grandmother shook her head in disappointment. Then she said something even more surprising. Your father is not telling you everything. I turned toward her. What else is there? She looked at my father again. His face had gone pale. And then she said the sentence that changed everything once again. Riya did not leave today. Your father took her somewhere. The room became silent. I slowly turned back toward him. For the first time in my life, I saw fear in his eyes. And before he could answer, his phone started ringing. He looked at the screen. His expression changed immediately. I noticed one name displayed on the phone. Riya. But before I could grab it, he declined the call. And that was the moment I realized something horrifying. My father knew exactly where my wife was. And he had been hiding it all along. The moment my father rejected the call, I lost my patience. I grabbed his phone, but he pulled it away before I could see anything else. Give me the phone, I shouted. My mother started crying. My grandmother looked furious, and my father finally yelled back for the first time in years. You don't understand anything. I stared at him. Then explain it. Instead of answering, he walked toward his room. I followed him. He locked the door. That was enough for me. I had spent my entire life respecting him, listening to him, trusting him, and now I realized that trust had been broken. I returned downstairs. My grandmother was waiting for me. She quietly handed me a small notebook. It belonged to my late grandfather. Take this, she said. He wanted you to have it someday. I opened it. Most pages contained business records and personal notes. But one page caught my attention. 2 names were written together. My grandfather's name, and another name, Vikram Sharma, Riya's late grandfather. Underneath was a single sentence. No debt between friends. Family is never business. I looked at my grandmother. She smiled sadly. Your grandfather never wanted promises. He only wanted friendship. So why did Papa become obsessed with it? Her eyes filled with disappointment. Because after your grandfather died, our business collapsed again. Your father believed we survived only because of Vikram Sharma's family. He spent years feeling guilty. Suddenly things started making sense. My father had turned gratitude into obsession. But that still did not explain where Riya was. That night, I barely slept. Around 2 in the morning, my phone vibrated. Unknown number. I answered immediately. Hello. Silence. Then I heard someone crying softly. Arjun. It was Riya. I almost dropped the phone. Riya, where are you? Are you okay? She sounded exhausted. I am safe. Tell me where you are. I'll come right now. No, no, I asked. Why not? She remained silent for several seconds. Then she said something I never expected. I asked your father not to tell you. I froze. What? He didn't kidnap me. He brought me here because I asked him to. Nothing made sense anymore. Why would you do that? Her voice trembled. Because I remembered something. What do you mean? Another long silence. Then she whispered. I remembered who your family is. I felt cold. What are you talking about? She started crying again. My late fiancé, Rohit. Yes, he knew your family. I stopped breathing. What? He worked for your father's company years ago. My mind went blank. Rohit, her fiancé who died before their wedding. How could he possibly know my family? Riya continued. After I saw an old photo inside your house, memories started coming back. What memories? She took a deep breath. The last day I saw Rohit alive. According to her, Rohit had received an urgent phone call. He told her he had to meet someone regarding an important work matter. He seemed worried. Before leaving, he told her something strange. If anything happens to me, never trust promises made by powerful people. At that time, she thought he was joking. A few hours later, his car crashed on a highway. Everyone called it an accident. The police closed the case quickly. Life moved on. Years passed. But after entering our house, she saw an old company photograph hanging in the hallway. And there, standing beside my father, was Rohit. She recognized him immediately. Memories she had buried for years suddenly returned. That was why she became distant after marriage. That was why she looked uncomfortable around my father. And that was why she panicked after I found the old medical papers. Because she no longer knew whether her fiancé's death had truly been an accident. I sat, speechless. My own father had known her late fiancé. Yet he had never mentioned it. Not once. I immediately asked, where are you right now? She hesitated. Then she finally answered, I'm at your aunt's house in Nashik. My aunt. I did not even know she had met my aunt. Riya explained that after remembering Rohit's connection, she confronted my father privately. Instead of denying it, he told her to leave temporarily until he could explain everything. But before she left, he revealed one final thing. Something he had hidden from everyone. Something even my mother did not know. Riya whispered it slowly. Arjun, your father was the last person who spoke to Rohit before he died. I felt my entire body go numb. The room started spinning. No, that's impossible. I don't know if it means anything, she said. But after hearing that, I got scared. Suddenly dozens of questions flooded my mind. Why had my father hidden this? Why arrange our marriage? Why protect Riya? And why keep bringing up family honor? I looked toward my parents' bedroom. The light was still on. My father was awake. Meanwhile, I had just learned that he might have been connected to a tragedy that happened years ago. I wanted answers, immediately. But before I could move, another message arrived on my phone. It was from an unknown number. Only one sentence. Stop digging into Rohit's death if you want your wife to stay alive. Attached below the message was a recent photograph. Riya, standing outside my aunt's house. Someone had been watching her. And suddenly I realized something terrifying. Maybe my father wasn't protecting himself. Maybe he had been protecting us all these years. For several seconds, I could not move. I kept staring at the photograph attached to the message. It had clearly been taken recently. Riya was standing outside my aunt's house carrying a grocery bag, which meant only one thing. Someone knew exactly where she was. And someone was watching her. My hands started shaking. I immediately called Riya. She answered after the first ring. Arjun, listen carefully. Don't go outside. Lock every door. What happened? I sent her the screenshot. A few seconds later, I heard her breathing become heavier. Oh God, did you tell anyone where you are? No, only your father and your aunt know. That answer hit me hard. Either the person watching her already knew where she was, or someone close to us had leaked the information. I drove straight to my parents' house again. This time, I didn't care about arguments. I wanted answers. My father was still awake. The moment he saw my face, he knew something was wrong. I threw my phone onto the table. He looked at the message. And for the first time since all of this started, I saw genuine fear on his face. Not anger, not frustration, fear. He slowly sat down. Then he whispered, they found her. I felt a chill run through my body. Who found her? My father closed his eyes. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Finally, he said something I never expected. Rohit's death was not an accident. The entire room became silent. Even my mother looked shocked. What are you saying? She asked. He looked at her with tears in his eyes. I never told you because I wanted to protect all of you. My grandmother sat down slowly. She looked as if she already suspected something. My father finally began telling the truth. Years earlier, Rohit had worked as an accountant for our company. He was honest, hardworking, and very intelligent. One day, he discovered something strange in the financial records. Large amounts of money were disappearing. At first, he thought it was a mistake. But after investigating further, he realized someone inside the company was laundering money. Not just a few lakhs. Crores. Rohit informed my father immediately. Together, they secretly gathered evidence. They planned to hand everything over to the police. But before they could act, the people involved discovered what Rohit had found. My father begged him to disappear for a few days. But Rohit refused. He said innocent people were being harmed. And he wanted justice. The next day, he died in what everyone believed was a road accident. My father looked broken as he spoke. I attended his funeral knowing he had been murdered. My mother covered her mouth in shock. Why didn't you go to the police? My father's eyes filled with guilt. I did. What? I gave them everything. But the evidence disappeared. Suddenly I understood. The people involved had connections. Power. Influence. Enough to bury the truth. But why arrange my marriage with Riya? I asked. He lowered his head. Because after Rohit's death, I promised myself I would protect her family. Protect them from what? From the people who killed him. Apparently, after the case was buried, strange incidents began happening around Riya's family. Threatening calls, unknown visitors, suspicious accidents, nothing serious enough to prove, but enough to scare them. My father secretly helped them financially several times without telling anyone. He kept watching over them from a distance. And when he learned that Riya had recovered from her depression and was ready to move on with her life, he made a decision. He convinced himself that bringing her into our family would allow him to protect her permanently. His guilt over Rohit's death had turned into an obsession. That was why he forced the marriage. Not because of family honor. Not because of some promise. But because he blamed himself. I sat there in complete silence. Everything I thought I knew had been wrong. But before I could process everything, my father said something even more terrifying. The man responsible for Rohit's death was never arrested. Who was he? I asked. My father looked away. He used to be my business partner. My blood ran cold. Used to be. He disappeared after the investigation collapsed. And his name? My father hesitated. Then he finally answered. Mahesh Khanna. The name meant nothing to me. But my grandmother suddenly stood up. Her face had turned pale. No. She whispered. Everyone looked at her. My father looked shocked. Ma, you know him. Her hands started trembling. Then she said words that made the room completely silent. Mahesh Khanna isn't missing. What? My father asked. I saw him 3 months ago. Nobody moved. She continued slowly. He came to the temple. He recognized me, and before leaving, he told me something. My grandmother's voice broke. He said, tell your son that old debts are finally being collected. My father looked horrified. Apparently, she had hidden this from everyone because she thought the old man was simply trying to scare her. But now everything made sense. The threatening message, the photograph of Riya, someone had returned, someone who should have disappeared years ago. And then my phone rang again. Unknown number. This time, I answered immediately. A man's voice laughed softly. Arjun. I froze. Who are you? The man replied calmly. Ask your father about Mahesh Khanna. The entire room became silent. Then he said one final sentence. The truth your father told you tonight is only half the story. And before disconnecting, he added. By the way, your aunt's house in Nashik is beautiful. I nearly dropped the phone. Because at that exact moment, Riya called me again. She was screaming, and in the background, I heard glass breaking. The moment I heard Riya screaming, my heart nearly stopped. Riya, I could hear shattered glass in the background. Someone was yelling. Then the line suddenly went dead. I called again. No answer. Again. Still nothing. My father immediately grabbed his car keys. We're leaving now. My mother tried to stop us, but neither of us listened. Within minutes, we were driving toward Nashik in complete silence. For the first time in my life, I wasn't angry with him. I was terrified. Halfway through the journey, my aunt finally answered her phone. She was crying. Arjun, they're gone. My hands tightened around the phone. What do you mean gone? There were 2 men. They broke a window and entered the house. Where is Riya? I don't know. Where are the police? They're here now. By the time we reached Nashik, it was almost sunrise. Police officers were already investigating. Broken glass covered the floor. Furniture had been overturned, but something felt strange. There were signs of a struggle. Yet nothing had been stolen. Not money, not jewelry, nothing. Almost as if they had come for only one thing. Riya. An officer questioned my aunt. According to her, Riya had hidden inside a room when she heard noises. The men searched the house. But suddenly they ran away before reaching her. Nobody understood why. Then one officer approached us. We found this. It was a phone. Riya's phone. The screen was cracked, but still working. Inside the phone was an audio recording. The recording had started accidentally during the attack. Everyone stood silently as we played it. At first there were sounds of footsteps. Then Riya whispering, Then a man's voice, and the moment my father heard that voice, his face changed completely. He looked terrified. The man inside the recording said, "Wrong house." Another man replied, "But she's supposed to be here." Then the first voice spoke again. "No, take the message and leave." The recording ended. My father sat down heavily. I looked at him. "You know that voice?" He slowly nodded. "Yes." "Who is it?" His answer shocked everyone. "Not Mahesh Khanna." "What? That voice belongs to his son." I stared at him. Mahesh had a son. "Yes. His name is Karan." According to my father, Karan was only 18 when Rohit died. After the investigation collapsed, both father and son disappeared. Nobody had seen them for years. Until now. But one question bothered me. If they wanted Riya, why leave? Then one of the officers approached us again. "Sir, we found someone hiding nearby." My heart skipped a beat. It was Riya. She had escaped through the back door and hidden inside a neighbor's storage shed. The moment she saw me, she burst into tears. I hugged her tightly. For the first time since our marriage, she held onto me without hesitation. Neither of us said anything. We just stood there. Later that day, after she calmed down, she revealed something she had never told anyone. Not even her parents. A month before Rohit's death, he had given her a sealed envelope. He told her, "If anything happens to me, open this." But after his death, she became emotionally shattered. She forgot about the envelope completely. Years later, during treatment, she packed away many old belongings without looking through them. And after our marriage, while unpacking at our house, she accidentally found it again. That was why she had become distant. That was why she looked afraid. She had opened the envelope. And inside was a pen drive. Nobody knew what was on it. Not even her, because she had been too scared to check. My father looked shocked. "Where is it?" Riya hesitated. Then she said, "I still have it." The entire room went silent. Apparently, she had hidden it inside the cover of an old book. She retrieved it from her bag. A simple black pen drive. Something so small, yet apparently important enough for people to kill for. We borrowed a laptop from my aunt. Nobody spoke as the device loaded. Several folders appeared. Financial records, photographs, scanned documents, and one video file. Rohit video_final. My father closed his eyes. He already knew. He knew what we were about to see. The video began. Rohit appeared on the screen. He looked nervous, but calm. He looked directly into the camera. "If you're watching this, something has happened to me." Riya started crying immediately. Rohit continued. "I discovered illegal transactions inside the company. My boss, Mr. Rajesh Sharma, has helped me gather evidence. That was my father. He had told the truth." But then Rohit said something that froze everyone. "However, there's one thing Rajesh sir doesn't know." I looked toward my father. He looked confused. Rohit continued. "The man behind everything isn't Mahesh Khanna." My father stood up suddenly. "What?" The video continued. "Mahesh is only the middleman. The real person controlling everything is someone nobody would suspect." My entire body became tense. Rohit opened a file and showed a photograph to the camera. And the moment the image appeared, my grandmother collapsed into her chair. My mother screamed, and my father looked like he had seen a ghost. Because the man in the photograph wasn't a stranger. It wasn't Mahesh. It wasn't Karan. It wasn't anyone outside the family. It was my uncle, my mother's younger brother, the man I had called Mama my entire life. Nobody spoke. The room had become completely silent. My mother's face had lost all color. My grandmother sat frozen, and my father looked as if the world around him had stopped. On the laptop screen was the photograph Rohit had shown. My uncle, my mother's younger brother, Sanjay Mehta, the same man who had attended my wedding. The same man who always brought gifts for everyone during festivals. The same man who jokingly called himself my second father. Riya was crying quietly beside me, but I couldn't even react. I was numb. The video continued. Rohit's voice remained calm. "If you are seeing this, then I need you to understand something. Sanjay Mehta appears clean to everyone. He keeps his name away from official records. But every suspicious transaction eventually leads back to him. He uses other people to protect himself. He used Mahesh Khanna as his public face. But Mahesh works for him." My father slowly sat down. "No." He whispered. "That's impossible." Apparently, my father had spent years believing Mahesh was the mastermind. He never once suspected his own brother-in-law. My mother started crying. "You're wrong," she said to nobody in particular. "My brother would never do something like this." But Rohit's video wasn't over. He opened another file. Bank statements, property documents, company records, everything connected back to Sanjay. Even worse, some documents showed transactions that happened after Rohit's death. Meaning the operation had continued for years. Then Rohit said something that made my blood run cold. I confronted Sanjay sir personally. He told me I had two choices. Join him, or disappear. The video stopped. Nobody moved. Finally, my grandmother broke the silence. "Call the police." But my father shook his head. No. Everyone looked at him. No. I asked angrily. We finally have evidence. He looked exhausted. Not yet. Why not? Because if Sanjay has survived this long, then he has connections everywhere. He'll disappear before they can arrest him. I hated hearing that, but after everything that had happened, I knew he might be right. Then suddenly Riya spoke. Her voice was quiet. There's something else. Everyone looked at her. She wiped away her tears. The envelope had 2 pen drives. What? She nodded. I only brought one. My father stood up immediately. Where is the second one? I left it at our house in Pune. The room became silent again. Our house. The same house where my mother currently was. The same house where nobody knew about the evidence. My father immediately called her. No answer. He called again. Still nothing. For the first time in years, I saw panic in his eyes. Then my phone rang. Mom. I answered immediately, but it wasn't her voice. It was a man, and I recognized it instantly. The same voice from the recording. Karen. He laughed softly. Good evening, Arjun. My entire body froze. Where's my mother? She's alive. What do you want? Nothing from you. Then why are you doing this? His voice suddenly changed. The laughter disappeared. You really don't know, do you? Know what? There was a long silence. Then he said something I never expected. My father never killed Rohit. I looked at my father. He looked equally shocked. Karen continued. Mahesh Khanna spent 20 years protecting someone else's crime. What are you talking about? You want the truth. Bring your father to the old Sunrise factory outside Pune. Midnight. Come alone. And bring the pen drive. Before disconnecting, he added one sentence. Oh, and tell your father that I'm tired of paying for his mistakes. The line went dead. I slowly turned toward my father. He looked completely broken. Papa, what mistakes is he talking about? My father closed his eyes. And then he whispered words that nobody in the room expected. Because Karen is right. Everyone stared at him. Even Riya. Even my grandmother. Even me. Tears rolled down his face. Mahesh Khanna didn't ruin my life. I ruined his. Nobody moved. What do you mean? I asked. My father looked 20 years older. Then he finally revealed the secret he had hidden from everyone. 22 years ago, before I was born, my father and Mahesh had been best friends. Not business partners. Brothers in everything except blood. Together, they built the company from nothing. But one night, a terrible accident happened. An accident that killed Karen's mother. My father had been driving. Not Mahesh. And because of his influence and money, the truth was hidden. Mahesh lost his wife. Karen lost his mother. And my father walked away carrying guilt for the rest of his life. Everything that happened afterward, the broken friendship, the hatred, the obsession with protecting people, the constant guilt, it all started there. My father looked at me with tears in his eyes. I destroyed their family, and when Rohit died years later, I convinced myself that Mahesh had become a monster. But maybe, he paused, maybe I was wrong. At that exact moment, another message arrived. This time it contained a photograph. My mother, alive, sitting in a chair, holding a newspaper with today's date, and behind her stood Mahesh Khanna himself. Older, gray-haired, but very much alive. Under the photograph was a single sentence. It's time everyone learns the truth. I could barely breathe. The photograph of my mother kept replaying in my mind. She looked frightened, but she was unharmed. That was the only thing keeping me calm. My father stared at the picture for a long time. Then he quietly said, "We're going." I looked at him. "The police should come with us." He shook his head. "If they really have your mother, we can't risk it." I hated the idea. Every instinct told me it was a trap. But if my mother was in danger, I couldn't ignore it. Riya stepped in front of me. "You're not going alone." I took her hands. "You've already been through enough." She looked me in the eyes. "We're husband and wife. If you're risking your life, I'm not leaving you." For the first time since our marriage, I realized how much we had changed. We had started as strangers brought together by lies. Now we trusted each other more than anyone else. After a long discussion, we agreed on a plan. My father and I would go inside the abandoned Sunrise factory. Riya would stay outside with my aunt and quietly inform the police of our location. If anything went wrong, they would move in. Just before midnight, we reached the factory. The building looked abandoned. Broken windows, rusted gates, overgrown weeds surrounded the entrance. Everything was silent, too silent. My father stopped walking. "I built this place." I looked at him in surprise. "This was our first factory. Our dream." He smiled sadly. "And this is where everything fell apart." We stepped inside. The sound of our footsteps echoed through the empty building. Suddenly, the lights came on. One by one, at the far end of the factory stood 2 men. One was Karen, the other was Mahesh Khanna. He looked much older than the photographs. His hair was completely gray. His face carried years of pain. But his eyes were calm. There was no hatred, only exhaustion. Beside him sat my mother. She wasn't tied up. She wasn't injured. She simply looked terrified. The moment she saw us, she ran toward my father. Mahesh didn't stop her. That surprised me. My father held my mother tightly. Then he turned toward Mahesh. If you wanted revenge, why let her go? Mahesh sighed. Because I never wanted revenge. Those words stunned everyone. What? I asked. Mahesh looked directly at me. Your father still thinks this story is about revenge. It isn't. He slowly walked closer. 22 years ago, Rajesh made a terrible mistake. My father lowered his head. Mahesh continued. He admitted it to me. He begged for forgiveness. I forgave him. I looked between the two men. If you forgave him, then why disappear? Mahesh gave a tired smile. Because someone else used our tragedy. He pointed toward the old office upstairs. Come. We followed him. Inside the dusty office were dozens of old files. Newspaper clippings, financial records, photographs, everything carefully organized. Mahesh placed a folder on the table. You've been looking for the wrong villain. My father opened the folder. His hands immediately began shaking. The first document was a police report. The second was an insurance record. The third was a list of shell companies. Every single one contained the same signature. Sanjay Mehta, my uncle. Mahesh spoke quietly. After my wife died, I left the company. Your uncle slowly took control. He used both our names. He told everyone I wanted revenge. He told others Rajesh had become greedy. He made sure we never spoke to each other again. I looked at my father. You never contacted him. He shook his head. I believed he hated me. Mahesh smiled sadly. And I believed you wanted me dead. 20 years. An entire generation. Destroyed because two friends never spoke to each other again. Then Karen stepped forward. I found out the truth 5 years ago. He looked at my father. I hated you my whole life. I blamed you for my mother's death. But after finding my father's files, I realized someone else had been manipulating both families. I frowned. Then why threaten us? Karen looked embarrassed. Because none of you would have listened otherwise. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The threatening messages, the mysterious phone calls, the staged attack, they had all been designed to force everyone into the same room. Mahesh looked at me. I'm sorry for frightening Riya. We made sure nobody touched her. The men who entered your aunt's house worked for me. They left as soon as they confirmed she was safe. Riya had been terrified for nothing. Or at least, that's what I wanted to believe. Then Mahesh opened one final folder. Inside was a sealed envelope. He handed it to my father. Rohit gave me this 2 days before he died. My father stared at him. You met Rohit? Mahesh nodded. He came looking for me. He already knew Sanjay was the real mastermind. He wanted my help exposing him. My father slowly opened the envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter. Rohit's handwriting. He had written, if anything happens to me, don't let innocent people keep blaming each other. The real criminal is Sanjay Mehta. Trust no one who benefits from silence. My mother's knees gave way. She collapsed into a chair. My own brother. She couldn't finish the sentence. At that exact moment, sirens echoed outside the factory. Red and blue lights flashed through the broken windows. The police had arrived. Riya stepped inside with several officers. She had ignored my instructions and called them anyway. The lead officer walked toward us. We've arrested Sanjay Mehta. Everyone froze. What? I asked. The officer nodded. He tried to leave the country 2 hours ago. He was carrying fake passports, cash, and several storage drives. The room became completely silent. It was finally over, or so I thought. Then the officer looked at Mahesh. Sir, we also found something else. He handed Mahesh a sealed evidence bag. Inside was an old wristwatch. Mahesh's hands began shaking. He whispered, this belonged to Rohit. The officer nodded. It was recovered from Sanjay's private locker. That single piece of evidence confirmed everything. Rohit had confronted the right man. And that confrontation had cost him his life. For years, innocent people had blamed each other. The real killer had been sitting at family dinners, smiling in every wedding photograph, and pretending to be a loving uncle. As police officers led everyone outside, dawn began to break over the old factory. For the first time in years, the truth had finally come into the light. But one final chapter still remained. The question was no longer who had destroyed our lives. The question was whether our family could ever heal after learning the truth. The sun was rising as we walked out of the abandoned factory. For the first time in weeks, nobody was hiding anything. No more secrets. No more lies. Only the truth. It felt strange. The police questioned all of us for hours. Every document from the pen drives was copied. Mahesh handed over the files he had spent years collecting. My father gave his old company records. Even Riya submitted Rohit's letter and the video he had recorded. The investigation that had failed years ago was finally reopened. Over the next several weeks, the truth came out piece by piece. The shell companies, the fake contracts, the missing money, the threats, everything pointed to one person. Sanjay Mehta, the man our family had trusted without question. The man who had smiled at birthdays, weddings, and festivals. The man who had secretly built an empire using fear and corruption. When investigators searched his properties, they found far more than anyone expected. Hidden ledgers, unregistered bank accounts, fake identities, and enough evidence to connect him directly to Rohit's murder. The news spread across the country. Friends called us, relatives stopped by, reporters waited outside our house. Everyone wanted answers, but none of us wanted attention. We only wanted peace. A few months later, the trial began. For the first time since Rohit's death, his parents sat inside a courtroom believing justice might finally happen. Riya held my hand so tightly that morning. She wasn't crying anymore. She looked determined. When Sanjay entered the courtroom, he didn't even look at us. He kept his eyes on the floor. The prosecution presented every document, every financial record, every recording, every witness. Then came the most emotional moment of the trial. Rohit's final video was played in court. The room became completely silent. Even the lawyers stopped taking notes. When Rohit's voice echoed through the courtroom, his parents broke down. Riya quietly wiped away her tears. I held her hand even tighter. For years, everyone had believed he died in a random accident. Now the whole truth was finally being heard. After several weeks of hearings, the judge delivered the verdict. Sanjay Mehta was found guilty on multiple charges, including conspiracy, financial crimes, and arranging Rohit's murder. The courtroom remained silent as the sentence was announced. No one celebrated. There was no happiness, because no punishment could bring Rohit back. As officers led Sanjay away, he stopped for the first time. He turned toward my mother. "I'm sorry." She looked at him with tears in her eyes. Then she quietly replied, "You stopped being my brother the day you chose greed over humanity." He lowered his head and walked away without another word. That was the last time we ever saw him. Life slowly began to return to normal. Mahesh and my father met several times over the following months. At first, the conversations were awkward. Years of misunderstanding cannot disappear overnight. But they talked, really talked, for the first time in over 20 years. One evening, I watched them sitting together on our balcony with 2 cups of tea. Neither of them spoke for several minutes. Finally, my father broke the silence. "I'm sorry." Mahesh smiled sadly. "I forgave you a long time ago." My father looked confused. "Then why didn't you tell me?" Mahesh looked toward the sunset. "Because I thought you hated me." My father laughed softly. "I thought exactly the same." The 2 old friends sat there laughing through their tears. It was a simple moment. But after 2 decades of pain, it meant everything. Riya also began healing. She returned to therapy, not because she was broken, but because she wanted to move forward. This time, she wasn't alone. I went with her whenever she asked. We started talking honestly, about everything, our fears, our anger, our future. One night, several months later, we visited Rohit's parents. I had been nervous the entire drive. I didn't know how they would feel about me. After all, I was the man who had married the woman their son once loved. But the moment we entered, Rohit's mother smiled warmly. She hugged Riya first, then she hugged me. She looked at both of us and said, "Rohit always wanted her to have a happy life. He wouldn't want either of you to keep living in the past." Those words lifted a weight I didn't even know I was carrying. Months turned into a year. Our marriage slowly became something real. Not because our families arranged it. Not because of guilt. Not because of promises made by previous generations. But because we chose each other. One rainy evening, while cleaning the house, I found the very first note my father had written. The one that said, "Do not search for her. You will understand later." I stared at it for a long time. Then I quietly placed it into the fireplace. Some memories deserve to stay. Others deserve to become ashes. A week later, my father came to me with a small wooden box. "This belonged to your grandfather." Inside was the old notebook I had seen before. This time, another folded paper slipped out. I unfolded it carefully. It was written in my grandfather's handwriting. It said, "If you are reading this, it means my family has survived another storm. Remember this, families are not held together by secrets. They are held together by truth, forgiveness, and the courage to admit when we are wrong." I read those words twice. Then I handed the note to my father. Neither of us spoke. We didn't need to. On the 2nd anniversary of our wedding, I took Riya back to the small cafe where I had written my first Reddit post. The one asking strangers if I was being manipulated. She laughed when I showed her the old post on my phone. Thousands of comments, thousands of opinions. She smiled and asked, "So, what would you write now?" I thought for a moment. Then I opened a new post. I typed, "Update. 2 years ago, I thought my family had destroyed my life. Today I'm having dinner with my wife, my parents, Mahesh uncle, and Rohit's parents at the same table. We lost years because of lies, but we found each other again because someone finally chose the truth. Thank you to everyone who told me to keep asking questions." Before pressing submit, I looked at Riya. She nodded. I smiled, and for the first time in a very long time, it truly felt like the story had reached its ending. The end.